My name's Erin, I'm 28, and up until about 3 weeks ago, I thought I was going to marry the love of my life. His name's Daniel, 31, charming, composed, the kind of guy who walks into a room and somehow makes everyone feel like they already know him. We met at a work conference in Chicago, both working in tech. He was back-end, I was front-end, and somewhere between debugging code and midnight snacks in the hotel lobby, we clicked. It was easy, natural, like we were just meant to be. Our relationship was slow and steady for the first year. Daniel was the kind of boyfriend that brought you soup when you were sick and remembered obscure anniversaries like the day I landed my first freelance gig. He wasn't overly emotional, but he was thoughtful. Always had been. That's why, when he proposed after 2 years during a quiet dinner at our favorite Indian place, I didn't hesitate. I said yes, heart pounding, not because of nerves, but because for the first time in my life, everything felt certain. The problems started small. They always do, don't they? Little things you shrug off at first because love makes you generous, maybe even a little blind. His mom, Judith, had always been formal with me. She wasn't exactly warm, but I figured that was just her way. Her family is old money from the Northeast, country clubs, generational homes, etiquette manuals tucked behind designer whiskey bottles. My family? Loud, loving, working-class folks from Indiana who throw backyard BBQs for birthdays and laugh way too loud during football games. We're different, sure, but I never thought that difference would grow into a wall. Judith didn't outright dislike me. At first, it was more like subtle dismissals. She'd correct my grammar mid-conversation or joke about how charmingly simple I was. One time, at a brunch with her friends, she introduced me as Daniel's latest little project, like I was some kind of fixer-upper home. I laughed it off, but I felt the sting. I told Daniel later, and he kind of winced but said, "She just has a weird sense of humor. Babe, don't take it personally." So I tried not to. For a while, I really did try. But Judith wasn't the only one. His sister, Alexandra, Lexi, was even worse. She had that effortless cruelty that some people sharpen like a skill. At dinner parties, she'd casually bring up ex-girlfriends of Daniel's, the ones who came from the right kind of families. Once, during Christmas, she gave me a book titled How to Raise Cultured Children and said it was just a little gag gift, in case you guys start soon. Daniel told her to knock it off, but it always came with this half-laugh, like it was just harmless teasing. I started to wonder if I was the only one who didn't get the joke. Still, we moved forward. We set a date for spring. I was excited to plan the wedding, and for a while, I let myself dream. My mom cried when I told her the venue we picked. It was a restored barn with hanging lights and wildflowers, the kind of place that felt like home. My dad offered to pay for the catering. My younger brother, Eli, wanted to walk me down the aisle with Dad, since we're so close. My family, though not rich, poured their hearts into every little detail. But Daniel's side? They had other ideas. It started during the first big wedding planning dinner with both families. Judith sat down with a leather-bound folder, like she was prepping for a board meeting. She said, and I quote, "This wedding will be about legacy. It's important we reflect the status of the Whitmores appropriately." I blinked. The status of our family, she clarified with a patient smile, the kind you reserve for a child who just doesn't understand long division. "This isn't just a party, Erin. It's a statement." I looked at Daniel. He said nothing, just sipped his drink. My mom gave a nervous laugh and said, "Well, I'm sure we can make it a celebration for everyone, both sides." Judith looked at her, eyes cool. Of course, within reason. I should have seen it coming. Over the next month, things escalated. Judith slowly took over the planning. She pushed for a venue in Massachusetts, her hometown, because family history mattered. She hired a wedding planner without asking. She vetoed the buffet my parents had arranged, opting instead for plated 5-course meals with French inspiration. I hated it. Every piece of the wedding began to feel like someone else's story. Then came the guest list. Judith sent me a spreadsheet, color-coded. There were 187 people from Daniel's side. When I scrolled to mine, I saw just 11 names. I stared at it. 11. I called Daniel. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "What's this guest list? My cousins aren't on here. Neither are my aunts or half my uncles. You said we were keeping it balanced." There was a pause. Then he said, "It's not personal, babe. My mom just thinks it's better to keep the guest list intimate on your side." I laughed, stunned. 187 people from your family, and 11 from mine is intimate? She says the venue has a cap. Oh, so suddenly the 200 cap venue is full? He sighed. She thinks your side would be more comfortable watching online. It's not about importance, Erin. It's about logistics. I hung up. I sat in my apartment, staring at the screen, heart racing. For the first time, I felt something shift. Not just irritation or stress. This was something deeper. A crack in something I thought was solid. I talked to my parents that night. My mom was teary but said, "Honey, if this is what it takes for you to be happy, we'll support you. We can host a separate reception back home." My dad didn't say much, just clenched his jaw and nodded. I should have said no. I should have screamed. But I didn't. I felt so tired, so defeated, so worn down by the months of being steamrolled. So I gave in. I let them have their way. But something inside me had started unraveling. 2 weeks before the wedding, Judith called me to go over final details. It wasn't a conversation. It was a lecture. She reviewed the dress code. No floral patterns, no bold colors, no inappropriate fabrics. She reminded me that my brother's speech had been removed from the reception schedule because the tone was too casual. And then she said, so breezily, like she was commenting on the weather, "Also, just so you're prepared, Daniel's grandmother has expressed concern about the optics of mixing certain families too closely, so your family won't be seated near ours. It's just for appearances, dear." That was the moment. The exact moment something inside me snapped. I didn't say anything. I didn't argue. I just said, "Got it," and hung up. And then I got quiet. Real quiet. I stopped checking the group chats. Stopped responding to planner updates. I went through the motions, dress fittings, confirmations, RSVPs, but inside, I was hollowing out. Daniel didn't notice. Or maybe he did, but chose not to ask. The night before the wedding, we had a small rehearsal dinner. Just the wedding party and immediate family. My parents weren't invited. Neither was my brother. Judith gave a little toast, clinking her glass, smiling with her perfectly manicured hands. "To legacy," she said. "And to new beginnings, ones we can all be proud of." I stared at her, then looked at Daniel. He raised his glass. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, thinking of my dad walking me down the aisle, except he wouldn't be. Thinking of my mom watching from a screen, of Eli's removed speech, of every piece of me being carved out and replaced with someone else's vision. The next morning, I got dressed. Hair done, makeup flawless, gown zipped and tucked. Everyone told me I looked beautiful. I smiled. I waited. And then, right before the vows, I stood at the altar. I looked around at a sea of strangers in designer suits. I looked at Judith, beaming. I looked at Daniel, still silent. And that's when I did something no one saw coming. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I didn't cause a scene, not at first. I simply turned around. My heels clicked on the polished floor of the venue, each step echoing like a countdown. The air felt too still, like the moment right before a thunderstorm. I heard the murmurs ripple through the room, like the first crack of distant thunder. My heart was hammering, but my face? Calm. Stone cold. Someone called my name, soft at first. Then louder. "Erin." Daniel's voice. Uncertain. A step forward. I didn't stop walking. I reached the end of the aisle and paused. I turned, slowly, looking out at the stunned crowd. Judith's face had frozen in a smile, like she hadn't fully registered what was happening. Lexi's jaw had actually dropped. A few guests were craning their necks, confused, whispering. Daniel was still standing at the altar, stiff and wide-eyed, his hands slightly lifted as if unsure whether to chase me or stay put. I took a breath. I wanted to scream, to yell at them for everything they'd stolen from me. But I didn't. Instead, I reached into the bodice of my dress and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was a letter, one I'd written the night before when I couldn't sleep. I wasn't going to say anything, I began, my voice shaking just slightly. I was going to go along with this. I was going to let you have this day, the way you wanted it. Your food, your venue, your legacy. Judith stood up. "Erin, sweetheart." "No," I cut her off, voice louder. Stronger. "You don't get to talk now." A gasp from someone in the crowd. I didn't care. I looked at Daniel. Really looked at him. "You let them erase me, Daniel. Piece by piece. You let them take this wedding, this marriage, and turn it into some kind of display for their name, their history, their rules. And I let you. That's on me." He stepped forward. "Erin, please, we can talk about this after." "There's no after," I said, quietly now. "Not like this." I turned toward the guests. "My family isn't here today. Not because they couldn't be. Not because they didn't want to be. But because they weren't allowed. because someone decided they weren't legacy enough to sit in these rows. More murmurs now. I scanned the crowd, eyes locking with Judith. Her face was pale, lips tight. So, I've decided, I continued, if my family can't be part of this wedding, then I'm not going to be either. Silence. Utter, breathless silence. And then, I walked out. I made it to the side hallway before the first voice caught up with me. It wasn't Daniel. It was Lexi. Her stilettos clacked rapidly behind me, and then she hissed, "Are you serious right now?" I turned to face her. She looked almost amused beneath her outrage, like she couldn't quite believe I'd ruined their little show. "You just humiliated yourself in front of everyone." "No," I said. "I just reminded everyone who this day was supposed to be about." "You think this is some rom-com moment? You think Daniel's going to come running after you with his tie undone and a dramatic apology?" "No," I said again. "I think he already made his choice. Months ago." She sneered. "You'll regret this." "Maybe, but not today." I pushed the heavy wooden doors open and stepped into the blinding spring sunlight. What I didn't expect was what came next. Because parked just outside the venue gates, lined up, windows down, folding chairs stacked in truck beds, was my entire family. My mom, my dad, my brother Eli, aunts, uncles, cousins. They were all there. And when I stepped outside in my gown, eyes stinging but spine straight, they erupted into cheers. My mom ran to me first. "We didn't want you to be alone," she said, holding me tight. "Not today." I didn't even realize I was crying until I felt my dad's hand on my back, steady as ever. Eli grinned and waved a paper plate. "We brought barbecue. Hope you're not sick of pulled pork." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. And that's when I knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning. But what I did next, that was the real revenge. We set up right there in the parking lot. My family, bless them, had turned the whole gravel stretch outside that ridiculous country estate into what looked like a mini county fair. My Uncle Joe had brought a smoker on wheels, and it had already filled the air with the smell of hickory and sweet sauce. My little cousins were setting out cupcakes from a plastic container shaped like a football, and someone had popped open folding tables with mismatched tablecloths. There were even Bluetooth speakers set up on someone's truck bed, playing 90s hits. Eli looked at me and said, "Sorry we don't have a string quartet, but we do have potato salad and the Macarena." It was chaos. Beautiful, perfect chaos. I laughed again, wiping tears from my cheeks. "You guys are insane." My mom handed me a paper plate. "Insane about you." For a while, I let it all fall away, the venue, the people inside, Judith's shriveled-up expression when I walked out. I kicked off my heels, tied my hair back with a rubber band someone found in the glove compartment, and sat on the tailgate of my dad's truck with a plate full of cornbread and smoked ribs. My dress got dusty. My mascara ran. I didn't care. But then, about 45 minutes in, as we were doing a group photo in front of the inflatable cooler Eli brought, don't ask, I saw him. Daniel. He walked out of the venue slowly, jacket gone, tie loosened, the picture of a man who just realized the party wasn't where he thought it was. Behind him, a few guests trickled out, some confused, some trying to stay out of the drama, and a few who looked like they knew exactly what was happening and wanted to watch it unfold. Lexi was there too, fuming behind her designer sunglasses, talking to someone on her phone in hushed but angry tones. Judith? Nowhere in sight. Daniel walked up to the edge of the lot, stopping a few feet from where I was standing. His face looked different, less smug, less polished, a little lost. "Erin," he said softly, "can we talk?" The music lowered slightly. My uncle turned down the speaker, and everyone went still like a live broadcast had just switched over to a breaking news report. I met his eyes. "Sure," I said, setting my plate down. "Let's talk." We walked a little to the side, near the shade of an old oak tree. I crossed my arms, waiting. "I wasn't going to make this easy." "I didn't know you felt this strongly," he started. I blinked. "You didn't know I felt strongly about my own wedding?" He hesitated. "I mean, I thought you were okay with it. You didn't say anything. Because every time I did, you brushed it off. You called your mom's controlling behavior just tradition. You let her erase my family and said it was about logistics." I paused, letting that settle in. At what point was I supposed to scream louder? He looked down. I thought I was keeping the peace. I took a step forward. "Daniel, you kept their peace. Not mine. Not ours." He was quiet. Then, finally, I didn't know how to stand up to them. "And you didn't care enough to learn." That one landed. His shoulders dropped. I'm sorry. I really am. I studied him. I believed he meant it. In that moment, he did feel sorry. But sorry wasn't enough. Not now. Not after months of silence, of letting me fight alone. I looked back at the party, my people laughing, dancing, passing around aluminum trays of food like it was a family reunion. It felt like a wedding. The right kind. The one we should have had. You know what the difference is between you and them? I said. They don't have money. They don't have legacy or fine china or a coat of arms or whatever. But they showed up. They didn't sit in silence. They didn't prioritize appearances over people. They didn't let me stand alone. Daniel looked over too, his eyes lingering on my dad, who was showing one of the little kids how to two-step in work boots. I want to fix this, he said. I shook my head. It's not about fixing this. I gestured to the dusty lot, the laughter, the ribs. This doesn't need fixing. This is the best part of the day. He looked stunned, and I don't think it had fully hit him yet. That he wasn't just watching me walk away from a ceremony, I was walking away from him. I still love you, he said. I smiled. It was sad, and it hurt more than I thought it would. I know, I said. But sometimes love isn't enough. Not when the cost is me. He didn't follow when I turned around and walked back to the people who actually showed up. He didn't stop me. Maybe he finally understood what it felt like. The rest of the afternoon was surreal. Word spread fast. A few guests who'd originally sat stiffly in Judith's carefully curated seating chart slowly made their way to the parking lot. One of them, a second cousin of Daniel's, brought over a tray of untouched hors d'oeuvres from the catering staff and said, "Honestly, this is way more fun." It became a thing, a moment, a spontaneous, joyful, real celebration. Someone brought out a Polaroid camera and we started making a scrapbook on the hood of my cousin's car. My brother gave the speech he'd written, standing on a folding chair with a plastic cup raised high, and it made me laugh until I cried. And through it all, I kept thinking, this could have been the whole wedding. This should have been the whole wedding. But Judith didn't get to win, not in the way she thought, because I wasn't going to disappear quietly. After that day, things moved fast. A story like that, someone walking out of their own wedding and hosting a counter-celebration in the parking lot, it doesn't stay private for long, especially when you've got a cousin like mine, Jenny, who uploaded a short video of my walkout on TikTok with the caption, "My cousin ditched her wedding because the groom's family banned her side." We partied in the parking lot. It blew up. 3 million views in 2 days. Comments poured in, people calling it empowering, iconic, the ultimate Uno reverse. Others shared their own horror stories about being excluded, erased, overlooked. I wasn't alone, and knowing that gave me more courage than I'd had in months. I didn't post much myself, not at first. But then a wedding blog picked up the story and twisted it, framing it as a bridezilla tantrum and quoting an anonymous source, definitely Lexi, saying I had emotional issues and wasn't fit to be part of a legacy family. So I wrote my version. I posted a thread. I loved him. I wanted to marry him, but not at the cost of my voice, my values, or my family. And if that makes me a villain in someone else's story, so be it. I'm not the kind of woman who walks down the aisle in silence. That post went viral too. And something happened after that. People started sending me their stories. Women who'd been minimized. Brides whose in-laws tried to steamroll them. Daughters who were told they weren't elegant enough. I responded to as many as I could. I realized, maybe this wasn't just about a failed wedding. Maybe it was about reclaiming something a lot bigger. Judith tried to do damage control, of course. She emailed me 3 paragraphs about disappointment, public embarrassment, how deeply hurt the family was. My response was 5 words. Actions have very loud echoes. Then came the kicker. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Daniel. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. He sounded different. "Hello. I've been staying at Lexi's," he said. "My mom, well, she says it's best we all take some space." I didn't laugh, but I wanted to. "You're surprised?" I asked. He sighed. "No, I don't know who I am without all this." That line stuck with me. I don't know who I am without all this. That was the core of it, wasn't it? He'd been raised to believe his family's status was part of his identity, and giving it up, even to protect someone he loved, felt like tearing off his own skin. "I hope you figure that out," I told him. "But I won't be waiting around." I hung up. I blocked the number. And that was the last time I heard from him. And just like that, the page turned. In the months that followed, I started something new. Literally. I launched a small side project with Eli and Jenny, the real Vows. A community, blog, and podcast for women sharing stories of weddings that almost broke them and the ones that made them whole. We talked about family pressure, controlling in-laws, how to spot red flags, how to find your voice again. And it took off. Fast. I got emails from brides who canceled weddings just days before because they realized they were being silenced. I got thank yous from women who found courage to stand up for their vision. One woman said she watched my TikTok every time she needed strength to say no. And my family? Closer than ever. We hosted an unwedding celebration 6 months later, just for fun. I wore a white jumpsuit, and Eli gave another ridiculous toast. My mom danced to Bon Jovi with my dad in the grass. We took a group photo, and someone printed it on a tote bag that said, "Legacy? Nah, loyalty." That photo sits on my bookshelf now, right next to the unopened bottle of expensive champagne Judith gave us for the wedding. I thought about opening it once. Thought maybe I'd use it for closure. But nah, I donated it to a local charity auction. Let someone else taste the bitterness. As for me, I'm good. I didn't just walk out of a wedding. I walked back into myself. And honestly, that's the best vow I've ever made.